Welcome, everyone. My name is Erin Mihal. I am the Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement here at Emory University, and we have a wonderful program for you today. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Let us know in the chat where you're joining from and where you are in your career, early, exec, mid, whatever you want to share. If you'd like to share your LinkedIn profile, if you want people to connect with you, you're welcome to do that. Um, Also, the opinions and views expressed in these programs are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Emory University, Emory Alumni Association, or its affiliates. And now, my favorite part, I get to pass it on to Rachel Abraham, our moderator for today. Rachel, go ahead and introduce yourself, and I'll let you take over.
Thanks so much. Thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. My name's Rachel Abraham. Shout out to the fellow Oxfordians. I went to Oxford and Emory undergrad with a focus on psychology, and currently now I provide leadership and mindfulness coaching, small group facilitation, and retreats. I'm so pleased to be a part of this conversation, joined together with three of our amazing alumni coaches. And let's go ahead. Let's dive in first with introduction. So, Heather, maybe you could kick us off by sharing a little bit about who you are, and
Sure.
then we'll keep it moving.
Thanks, Rachel, and welcome. Thanks for joining us today. I'm excited and to be with these great colleagues. I am a Emory grad and married to an Emory grad who went to Oxford and to the business school, so he had trouble leaving Emory. I now live in Rhode Island, and I have over 20, I won't say how many, years of coaching and professional development. I've worked with hundreds of clients, from students to new managers to execs. I ran a CEO group. I really love working with people who are feeling stuck or in transition. And I'm ICF certified. I have a master's in counseling and two different coaching certifications through um, CTI and through the team coaching. So, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here, Heather.
Uh, Jody?
Oh, great. Thank you. I'm Jody Charlotte, proud Emory alumna, 82 Ox, fellow Oxfordian, love Oxford, still have many of my formative relationships from college decades later, still from Oxford. What a wonderful, special place. College 85. Um, Live a mile from Emory University's main campus, so I didn't go far from campus. I've been executive coach now for 22 years. I'm proud to say I probably helped formulate this group. Gosh, 22 years ago, I was 20 years in corporate communications, did my own pivot after a lot of complexity and change, technology, professional services, companies upsizing, downsizing, and was just very blessed to have a great coach myself that worked with me for 7 years. Didn't know I was going to be a coach at the time. I was continuing on in my career, but I always say I saw too much in the world to not go and try and help how to solve this crazy problem of helping people build careers that matter and become leaders that matter. And my whole career journey was about pivot, from corp comms to going back and get my master's in counseling after just really interested in the human condition of change, particularly in business settings. And so proud to say I do three types of coaching. One, leadership and inside corporate settings. So leaders and their teams are building satisfying environments so we can do great work. I have a channel for leveling the field. My program, Level the Field, is really about helping women understand the very unique things they face. Great leaders are gender neutral, but how we get there is sometimes very different. And then third, being one of my loves, is kind of the journey, the story, kind of pivoting. We can't, so much happening. We can't just wait for careers to happen to us. We really have to be intentional about building careers that matter. So delighted to be here with my esteemed colleagues and all of you today.
Thanks,
Hi,
Jody. Thanks,
everybody.
Steve. Yeah.
Uh, I'm Steve Mann, and I'm really proud to be here today. I am a very proud Emory grad. I'm married to an Emory grad as well, and really, she's the passion of my life. I began coaching right around the pandemic, start of the pandemic. Like so many of others, a career pivot has occurred, and that was a major one for me. I have type 1 diabetes. I've had it all my life. So when the pandemic hit, I started commiserating, having pity parties with folks that had chronic conditions as well, heart disease and kidney disease, even traumatic brain injury, things of that nature. I got off the a call one day and I turned to my wife and I said, honey, I think this is going to be my second act. This is what I want to do. I want to coach. So I got trained
Mm.
in health coaching and I started working with those very people that I had been commiserating with. And I realized that they had a lot of family issues, relationship issues, career issues, growth issues. So I went back and I got certified in those domains and I started coaching. Today, my coaching is primarily in three areas: leadership coaching, really helping professionals be the best that they can be, rising professionals who are just beginning to move into that, mid stage of their career and really want to do the best that they can. And then, ICs who are like, okay, how do I become how do I reach my full potential? I pivoted quite a bit before that as well. I'm primarily a B2B technology marketer. I was the CMO of companies like LexisNexis and other fintechs and a variety of venture capital firms that I've worked with. And like I said, I'm really proud to be here. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. All right, so we have here gathered together a very broad, um, diverse range of experience and expertise. From what I saw in the chat, we have people from all over the world and in different points in their career. I forget if this was mentioned earlier, but just for everyone listening and tuning in, if you do have a question that comes to mind, we welcome you to drop it in the chat, because we will reserve some time for your questions. And knowing a little bit more about where everyone is in their career, we'll keep that in mind in our conversation as well. So first things first, it sounds like that a, a couple of our coaches haven't endured a career pivot. And while external factors like COVID certainly play a role, I imagine there are other factors that that have motivated and contributed to some of these decisions. So, sorry, Jody, do you mind sharing a little bit more about what contributed to your decision with your pivot?
Yeah, one of the things I think is important for people to know that, most career pivots don't begin with a dramatic moment.
Yeah.
They really begin with a quiet knowing that something's not working for you, right? And I think the first part of a career pivot is usually a little existential suffering, right? We know we're not happy, but we kind of don't know why. And so we begin to think about it. And sometimes we think, is it me? Is it the job? So we kind of go through this pondering. But, um, people often think they happen because of layoffs or mergers or crises, and sometimes they do. But the signal usually comes much earlier. Maybe you stop feeling energized, the work that once stretched you begins to feel repetitive. And you realize you're succeeding at something you no longer want. And unfortunately, that's God's little trick called growth, right? And so every time we get somewhere we think we're going to be settled and happy, there moves, right? And so we're always continuously growing. And that was my experience too. I had come up through the communication arena and it was a perfectly great career for almost 20 years, right? And I pivoted within it. I started in B2B marketing. I was just fascinated what you were saying about Steve, about your own journey in fintech. And, all of that. I learned kind of the marketing realm, and then I went to the communications realm internally, and then I went to mergers and equity. So it was always kind of growing and stretching. And during that time, there was a layoff. I had a difficult boss, the many things that happened. And I was really blessed during that time to get my own coach. And what I think was really wonderful about coaching or anything, when you're going through it, you just can't see yourself clearly. And so I always say I was ready to scrub floors at Home Depot. I was ready to get out of corporate America because it was difficult. And he helped me realize that that was an emotional response. And off I went back in to have several more jobs. But having that partner helped me kind of get clear on who I was, what I was trying to build. Went out to Silicon Valley, did a lot of turnaround work during the bust. But it was during that time, again, it's all about evolution, not revolution. I really began to see it was really the human element that I really wanted to help. And that's when, after doing all of that work and mess and crazy that's going on in business today, did my master's in counseling and became a coach and have been coaching ever since. But I don't think when I started, I knew I wanted to be a coach. Coaching wasn't even really a profession. I just knew that I wanted to help businesses be more responsible, leaders be more impactful, teams not be so painful. And I think it evolves, our pivots sometime evolve and crystallizing it. And I will tell you, my philosophy is whether you have a good mentor or director, don't suffer alone. The mind's a dangerous neighborhood when you can't figure it out. Sometimes talking it out with people really helps you crystallize it and you're figuring it out. So anyway, that's a little of my journey. I think the goal is really not to run away from something, to run to something, and that's really evolving, and give yourself time to kind of work it out.
Let me ask you all this. So Jody, you mentioned evolution, not like a revolution.
Mhm.
Given just how rapid change can be, both for ourselves individually, our teams, but also the nature of our industries, um, how how can we distinguish between a temporary challenge and a cue for ourselves that it's time to make a shift in our lives?
Oh, Steve, did you want to go?
No, Heather, please.
Um, this is a topic that I just love. I'm very passionate about this. I talk to clients all the time. I've had a lot of clients who've been like, I'm so burned out, I'll have to leave. And there is constant change in this world. We're never going to be without of it. And I always like to say, don't run away from, run toward, right?
Mhm.
Because running away, it's going to catch up with you, right? So really, first we have to look within. Like I love Jody was like, I got a coach. And I was like, all right, what do I really want? What's important to me? So I would always start with like, what am I doing that's not taking care of myself? Do I have good
Mm.
boundaries? Am I really managing myself and giving myself the support, resilience? A friend of mine, Beth Benani, wrote a book about career resilience, and she's talking about how important your support networks are, right? You really got to
Mhm.
build these things as a place to check out. And then it's like, okay, am I having opportunity? Am I still able to learn? Am I, oh, like, do I still believe in the mission of the organization? Like one of the things Jody said was like, that wasn't meaningful to me anymore. Right. So those are questions I would ask to be sure, like, is this like I'm in burnout because I got overwhelmed with the change and I, was it like those middle managers. I've had so many middle managers that like above wants this and below wants this. And by the way, I have a family. And you just get so busy trying to take care of everyone else that they forget to take care of themselves.
Rachel, if I could just add on to that.
Go, yes.
So looking at your own careers, it really is a matter for me, it's a matter of, well, does this persist or is it acute? And
Mm.
acute tends to be, okay, this is a big problem. I really got to deal with this, or I'm exhausted about dealing with it, but I'm going to get past it. Whereas persistent is, you keep coming back to this over and over again, the same issue, just like, I really don't like the vibe here. The culture's hurting me 3 months later. I really don't like the vibe here. The culture's hurting me. And when those things begin to happen, the question that you have to ask, am I happy? Am I
Mm.
fulfilled? Is it a passion? It doesn't have to be passion, but at least you have to get up and, enjoy getting to work every day. If the answers to that, become consistent, then I would argue that it's time to seriously look, taking a pivot, making a pivot.
Nice.
I
So
just
you,
like to,
oh,
yeah, I was just going to add one more thing to this. And love what you said, Steve. And love what you said, Heather, knowing yourself. Like that was the thing I think for my coach and me. Getting that kind of clarity that kind of helps you know what your needs, wants, and wishes. Because anytime you don't feel happy or satisfied, it's a signal, right? Like the question is, what's it telling you, right? And so getting that clarity of it doesn't really matter if I'm working for this company or that company, but I know what's important to me. And that's kind of I can run the scenarios against that. So that clarity of understanding self. And then the other thing is just we're so overwhelmed with noise, cognitive overload, emotional overload, practical overload, because we just have more work than we know what to do and life is busy. But I think it's the power of noise versus intentional signal. And I think it's just really helping to kind of understand because so much of it is distraction and really kind of narrowing it down to the things that matter. And I think that's a really hard things to do when we're in it, experiencing it, feeling it. But you know the signals. Steve, you really highlighted it there. If you're coming back to the same signal's telling you something. The question is what's it telling you?
Well, to add on to what you were saying, Jody, it's two things. It's like you have these signals, but then
Mm-hmm.
how do you identify them? And that's where the coaching really comes in, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you may have those signals, they may be clear as day to everybody else, but what you do with the coach is the coach will teach you, or not teach you, but guide you so that you can use your own skills, have the own filters, your own capability to be able to identify those things that either say yay or nay.
Yeah.
Couldn't
so
agree more.
how do we, how, what are some practical ways that we can gain a sense of clarity around what it is that I really want and what is it that I value? Because oftentimes, when we talk about like purpose, it can feel a bit out of reach or a bit like conceptual and not real.
Yeah.
So any thoughts about how to navigate that?
I have a couple of thoughts on that.
Go for it, Steve.
I think the relationship with your coach is probably the foundation for being able to make that discovery. I've worked with plenty of coaches before for myself where the connection just wasn't there, the trust wasn't there, the ability to interact with the coach so that those things could be drawn out of you. I do think that it's a partnership, that being able to explore those things, it's not therapy at all, but I like to say it's therapeutic, right? It gives you the opportunity to do the exploration that you need to generate that clarity. Most people are able to approach that clarity relatively independently. But questions need to be asked. And if you can't ask those questions of yourself to get that clarity, then somebody else will be there to help you get that clarity. And that's typically what a coach does, whether it's a career coach, a leadership coach, an executive coach, a lifestyle coach. Their job is to help you build that channel so that you can get more clear on your needs and desires.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Heather.
I was just going to say, here's what I would recommend to ask yourself, right? First, get very clear on your strengths because as many years I've worked with clients, there's lots of ways to approach it, but we all have things that we are really just innately great at. And A strength means it's also tied to your motivators, to what feels important to you, so that it's going to be more energizing. And if those aren't being met in your career, that's going to be very hard for you to not get burnt out, to stay motivated. Um, and so check those out. Think of times in your life when you felt more excited or you were really, firing on all cylinders is what I like to say. And then just ask yourself some questions about like, what is it that I'm hoping to experience, right? What level do I want to grow into, right? We evolve and change, and careers do not stay stagnant. The world of work doesn't, and what we want doesn't. So, reevaluate that on a regular basis. And I would always say, what is it that you want to contribute to the world? These are big, high level, but then break it down to what would that look like today in this job, in my life?
Just to respond to Heather, I think there are some very pragmatic tools, to her point, that you can use to do this. One of the things that I like to do is have my clients create things that I love to do, things that I hate to do. What's the next stage in my life must have and what it must not have? Because once you understand those goods and loves and those hates and dislikes or I'm bad at, it becomes easier to say, okay, so what's the next section of my life? What must I have in it, whether or not it's personal or professional? And just as importantly, these are the things that are really going to drag me down that I don't want to do.
Mhm.
So once you understand your goods and your not goods, your loves and your hates, it makes it easier to begin to kind of chart a map, a path to the next phase.
Steve, I want to build on that. I always say it's hard to figure out what we want, but we darn sure know what we don't want,
Mm.
right? And so one of the things that I give my clients permission to do is go on a rant. Just give it to me. Like, just tell me all the things you're getting out of your life. My boss, my dad, blah, 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 whatever it is. Because that, and then let's flip it and understand what does it really mean, right? Like, what is that telling you you need? It's hard when you say, hey, what do you need? What do you want? What do you wish for? People are like, but only through that pain sometimes can we say the signals are underneath it. What does that mean? I'm burned out. What does that mean? Does that mean boundaries? I'm getting rid of the burnout, the culture, whatever. We have to kind of work it. But I would say the biggest challenge is just getting white space to think about, right? I think we're all on a treadmill, we're moving. And I would say the number one thing is getting that white space to even reflect. And that was the greatest thing I took away that I still do this very day. As a matter of fact, I'm getting ready to do it for a few days later this month. Every year I do that planning. Like I go out one year, I go by myself and I do 2 days of reflection, no distractions, anything to think about my career future. Am I on track to where I want to be? What's working? What's not working? Going through great, thoughtful questions. Is this a work I find meaningful? Like, our careers, we're growing and changing as humans. And we change our wardrobe. We need to always be thinking about what we're updating and what we're keeping. And
Mhm.
that is life.
Right.
And I think that is super important. And it doesn't have to be, I tend to like it because I'm introverted and I like to thoughtful reflection, sleep in late, really do deep thinking. I got 4 Emory alums and I've coached 3 out of 4 of them to the executive suite, but they get together. They went to school together, did their MBA together. They get together every year and have a retreat where the 4 of them come to talk about what it is they're doing. And we have business plans, we have life plans. It's like, do we have intentional? And I'm not saying it has to be all figured out, but just intentional thinking to get that pause, to listen to the signal, to clarify what it means, to build a career that matters. And it's kind of like building a dream house. You might be pulling, examples of shutters, and you might, over a year, you might, look at certain types of kitchens. You may not have it all figured out, but you'll want to really use the space to really begin to think about. And again, evolution versus revolution. Sometimes we might just have to take a job, but because the life has, put us in a layoff or other things, but that's reacting to what has happened. Even if you have a job today, I don't care if you're safe, happy, and you love it, you should always be protected and thinking about what's next for yourself, where you are you building courage, community, because it's not when you're going to need another job. It's not if, it's when. And so I think it's the white space to really do your work to figure out what it is you really want, and then start building the path forward.
So
So
let's talk about the path forward. So once, because I imagine a lot of folks here are seeking to make some sort of shift in their career. Once I've made sense of, okay, what do I don't want? What am I not happy with? Or what are the goods? What are my strengths? Um, how do where do I go from there? How do I leverage my experiences, my strengths, and then translate that into this new path going forward?
Those are great questions.
I'm
And
happy. I'm happy to take it. I really focus on four key things. Number one, I I call it the four C's, right? Just to kind of make it mnemonic, but it's the clarity of understanding what I need and want. And I think that is the piece that you got to get clear with you so you feel comfortable having conversation, right? And I think clarity is one of two things. Number one, I have enough clarity to know I want to make a switch, but I don't have all the answers. So I might go out and do some exploratory, just like market research. I go out and do some exploratory conversation to refine it. So I tell people, I don't know what I need yet, right? I just know these are some problems I want to solve. Would you be my sounding board partner? And then with that clarity, then we move into a more strategic clarity, which wow, it's coming into focus. So I'm at least clear that I have one or two destinations that I want to begin to move forward on. Then the second is how do I communicate it from conversation to putting a resume? Everybody's resume regurgitates their path. And one of the things you have to do is look at the story that you're trying to tell for the future, right? Because especially if you're making a pivot, and this is where people make a big mistake in not really understanding their story. And there's so much power, but they're regurgitating who they were, not really creating who they are. So there's some communication work in terms of our LinkedIn, our story, like getting crisp on that package. So it's my clarity and then the communication. And then the third is community, right? There is so much noise in the marketplace. The internet is a black hole. You think you're applying for jobs. One of my clients at the CDC tracked it for a year. She put out over 400 applications. She got 12 responses, no offers, and her two best job offers came from relationship. I don't make the rules. Community is everything. And if you have a community, great. If you don't, you can build one through associations, through Emory, we have more communities. One of my clients got his best leads through his tennis club because it was a hodgepodge of everybody in the city of Atlanta. So we have to build community. And the fourth thing I think is super important when you want to get your path forward is just courage. Courage to not it's easy to say, oh, well, the market's tough. And I don't know. Yes, the market's tough. But if it weren't possible, everybody would be stuck, right? So it's the courage to keep building. Now, and you may have to take a job or an interim thing, but don't give up. Don't get into a job, get settled in, and not continue the journey. People who build a career that matters, it might be a 1, 2, 3 punch, right? So, but everything is bringing you closer to that which you want and need in your own career and life. So that's how I kind of help people think about it, zone it, work it. And then that community is also having the support systems to keep you accountable because it's easy to start and stop, get off track, lose momentum. It does require commitment to building your career and making you a first class citizen in the process.
So if I can add on to what Jody was saying, um, I, when determining your second act, I like to work with my clients around the Japanese concept of the reason for being, which is called ikigai. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really asking and answering four questions, right? The first is, what do you love to do? What are your passions? What things really motivate you? Number two, the question that you need to answer is, well, what are you good at? What skills, competencies? Do you bring to the table? To put a hard point on it? So, what are your transferable skills if you want to talk about it from a pure job to job thing? Then what the world needs. So in other words, like how can you contribute to, as Jody said, your community, whether or not it's your neighborhood, your town, your county, or your country. And then believe it or not, the fourth one is, well, what are you going to get paid for, right? Because it is a profession. You have expertise. You're applying that expertise. So what are you going to get paid for, right? You deserve to get paid whether or not it's a profession, it's a career, a side hustle, or something you really don't want to talk about. So it's, passion, mission, what's your vocation, and what type of compensation are you going to get?
Love that.
I'd like to just sort of look at it also from a different way of like, if this is where I want to be, right? If I want to really grow in my career, like I feel like I've mastered this, if I'm looking for more challenge, right? What I have worked with a lot of clients with and seen the most is that they know they have some powerful skills at strategy or overseeing things, or they really want to make a bigger difference, but they don't know how to translate that. And they don't always know like what that is required to get there, right? Because it feels kind of nebulous. Like, well, how do I get to be the executive or get to that point? And like all those things that Jody and Steve are saying, like you have to start with owning, right? And get clear of that's the direction you want and what you bring to it. And then be that leader, right? Put yourself in that role. Describe yourself in that role when she was talking about resumes, conversations. Relationships is the number one way to get a job. In the age of AI, it's actually more. Recruiters like, we can't trust anything that comes in, right?
Yeah.
We are almost all hiring on referrals because we don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
And so you've got to own those stories, but you need to talk in the language. You need to say, I am strategic. I am someone who knows how to build relationships, right? Like maybe now you're coordinating or you're managing, but if you really want to jump to the leader, you have to envision yourself as that leader and put yourself there, right? And what we've really seen from successful leaders is they have strong EQ. They have relationship and organizational management skills. And those are a great way. If you like, maybe this is a 5-year goal. Be working on those skills. Be gravitating, volunteering, putting yourself in ways to build in that direction as a great step to building your career.
Rachel, if I could just add a couple of data points to that. The first is one of the reasons we've been talking a lot about relationships and networking. And just one of the reasons that's critically important is that 60% of the job market is hidden, believe it or not.
Mhm.
Most of the roles that are out there aren't being posted on LinkedIn. They're not being shared broadly. They're being held close to the vest by recruiters or deep networks. So it's the act of networking itself that exposes that 60% of the job market. The second item is kind of just one out of my head is that when you proceed to do this, it's a matter of being open to any possibility. Or when you talk to somebody that you would think has nothing to do with your job search. So, for example, I was talking to an Emory alum. And this Emory alum said to me, "Oh, you should talk to this Emory alum." And that Emory alum, this is a real thing that happened to me, a third Emory alum. And we were talking about a role. And this third Emory alum said, "You know what? I need you to talk to this guy at another company. He's got the role. And guess what? He's an Emory alum." So you never know where it's going to start and you don't
Yeah.
know where it's going to end. But I guarantee that if you keep asking, you're going to get to that end step. And the easiest way to get to that end step is when you end a conversation with somebody that you're networking with. Who's the one other person I should speak with?
Hmm.
Don't give
Hmm.
them a broad, who else should I speak with? Because they say, oh, talk to CEOs or talk to whatever. Who's the one person that I should be speaking with? You deserve an answer. I like to call it academic terrorism. So you need to keep asking those questions until you get the answers that you deserve. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
No apologies. No. I mean, I hope that everyone here to get, that this is hopefully empowering, right? We're
Mhm.
gathered together. There's such power in network effects, and um, I guess I'm presuming that we're all very uh, proud of our experiences and everything that we've learned through Emory. And so that shared affinity is what can support all of us in going forward. I want to take a moment to shift to what questions have been populating the chat. Um, so that we make sure that any like burning questions that you have, or you're like, yeah, but Steve, XYZ, we want to be sure that we give time to respond to some of the inquiry that's come up over this conversation. So what do we have?
So have good conversation in the chat. One question said, retirement is sounding pretty good when you've done enough and have saved enough. Your perspectives on retiring versus another job.
I,
I'll take that because I am right there, man. I am right there. I'm in my sixth
We all are.
decade. Um, I'm in my sixth decade. It boggles my mind that I am in my sixth decade because I still love so much of what I do. And so part of building a career that matters was also beginning to think about a job that and a career that had longevity, right? Like what was going to be my long game contribution, which is why I did my master's in counseling versus taking a coach certification, because I thought, my second act was to stay within the corporate world because I think business must be a force for good. I think business partnerships are very important. And I've grown up through the age of, business as a should be a thriving part of a community. It's livelihood, it employs a lot of people. But I also knew when I did my counseling degree that I would want to take it to another level. And so just to think about it. So, and the other thing is, I'm not sure anybody's really retiring. I think they're manifesting differently, right? Is it another job? Is it a contract organization? Is it leading an organization that's nonprofit? I think we're reinventing ourselves. And I think people are motivated by two things, purpose and productivity. And so if your productivity is family and you're ready to do that, that is fine. But a lot of folks still want to contribute. And the good news is, we're having badass second, third, fourth acts in our lives. And, the good news is we're wiser, hopefully, a little bit wiser as we grow. And, there's a lot of ways to contribute other than just another kind of corporate job or another job. So for me, it's about legacy. And again, it comes back to the questions that Heather was talking about or Steve was talking about. How do I want to build a life and a career that matters? And we move from survival to make sure we make enough, and then we stabilize and we have success. Now we really think about what are we leaving behind, right?
yeah.
Books, contribution. How am I contributing in a different way? And so contributions begins to shape into that significance, that legacy, that way to contribute in a whole new way, which opens up a whole new you may not need as much salary. You might, I don't know, we're all in different places and spaces, but there are different ways we can contribute so we can feel like we matter for as long and make a contribution to the world, no matter whether we have employed status or
I don't agree in retirement. I agree in second,
not.
third. I do. I
Yeah,
agree
yeah,
in
yeah.
second, third, and fourth acts. I think
Yeah.
you need to go on and try something new, different, a passion that
Hmm.
you haven't been able to fulfill. I had a client. He was general counsel for one of the large oil companies in the world, and he was approaching retirement. And so we worked through his second act desires. He always wanted to be a teacher because he actually started out
Oh,
as an engineer, and he wanted to be a science teacher, and he wanted to teach underprivileged kids.
Oh,
180 degrees from being the general counsel of one of the largest companies in the world to teaching underprivileged kids science. But that's an example of just how divergent you can go. There's no definition, there's no channel that you have to follow. It's whatever you want to follow.
I think that's rich. I think we're building careers and lives that matter, and we're growing. And also the need for meaning gets louder as we grow. It's always there. We're purpose-driven humans, and so it's getting louder.
Mhm.
And I believe we begin to see those bigger our footprint begins to get out into the world, like community world. Like I even think of my own, like it starts with women and safety. And now, because I travel internationally, it's like safety at a whole new level. Like I just think our needs and our wants and our passions just deepen and richen. And it just gives us a chance to give back in a whole nother way. I don't know about how everybody else is feeling, but I'm in my sixth decade and I've never been more excited about my next, two acts.
Mm.
I'm certainly continuing my coaching, but there's just so many cool things I want to do and contribute to the world. And so I think I don't even think there is such retirement is such it's a funny word, but I don't think we really ever retire from contribution and meaning. So
Even the word
Just
itself is horrible, right?
I know,
Fire.
retired. Yeah.
But if any of you are really at that point, I recommend you go to a website called the Modern Elder Academy.
Oh, I
And
love. Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
Modern Elder Academy, we're not old, we're not retirees. As a matter of fact, we are the modern elders in our world,
Yeah,
and that we
yeah.
have the wisdom to share with others as well as to plot our own course. Anyway, they have great retreats, lots of knowledge as to how to move on from that first act or even your second act. So I highly recommend visiting the Modern Elder Academy.
Yeah, Chip Conley is awesome. He's
He is.
wonderful.
I love
Yeah.
him.
we have a few others that have been popping up. What I any tips related to pivots for international opportunities? Have y'all worked with any clients that have endured that before, or any thoughts on that?
There's actually a wonderful alum that was my very first coach, Al Stewart. I think going international has a unique set. First of all, going international is like saying I'm going to go take a vacation in the world, right? Every country is very different, has different resumes. I think there are coaches that specialize in that, and Al Stewart at Business Mentors is somebody I've referred to. Some of my great clients that want to kind of tackle heading overseas or business overseas or want to live overseas. I mean, even our family, has some aspirations of doing a digital nomad leave, now that we're
Mm,
going to be empty nesters. And but Al does a great job. I think it's a unique specialty. I think it's has its own nuances. I think once your clarity is there that you want to do something overseas, and it is also about building community, right? And kind of understanding,
sure.
how you're getting there and what you have to offer. And for a lot of folks that want to port a job, a lot of times it's easier to get it here and transfer there. It's not an easy transfer, but it is absolutely possible. So getting the right expertise to explore that is really important.
And community, like you said, right?
Yeah, it's all about community.
Emory's everywhere.
Oh my God, yes, you can't throw a rock in the world that you don't have an Emory connection. So
Heather, were
absolutely,
you
that's
gonna say
Yeah, I
something?
mean, I
Sorry,
lived
Jody.
overseas for
Okay.
several
oh,
years,
that's
and
right.
it was challenging to work there. We went with my husband's job, and there were lots of resources that when you got there, like an expat group that was very helpful. But you really do have to understand the culture and the laws. And I think one of the people that said that was a physician. And, the thing that I would say is the joy of, trying these overseas experiences is that it's change and it's different. So you got to sort of build up that adaptability muscle, right? Always think about what's possible. Don't knock anything off, right? Do I want to do telehealth for a little while and then, get there and understand the lay of the land, right? Is there like a special gap certification that I need to make it work into that office, right? What is the minimum that I need to make the leap, right? Do I need a certain amount of money? Do I need a sort of side gig that's virtual that I can do to make that possible. But don't let the roadblocks get in the way. Just start planning for them, right? Start planning for them now.
I totally
You know, Heather,
with, I'm sorry, Jody, go ahead.
go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, there are two schools of thoughts of people. Some people, and again, it depends on your financial situation. But I had one client that said, I've built a year of salary and I'm going to the UK. I'm going to build community. And she was able to, through community, same with networking, be able to build community to find an agency there that was US based. And they were able to hire her in country because they have a US deal. I have others that need to kind of stay, have been able to leverage telework and be able to work overseas despite the fact that they have a US job. Some people need it before they go over, some people can build it once they're there. I think there are lots of different ways to kind of, but it is really about kind of finding that community, no different uh, than it is here, other than understanding. People will tell you it's super hard, but it's never impossible. It's all about who you know, the time you invest, what you get involved with, because people will help you find what you need and want. And it is through the power of others.
And it's that Ikige, like, where do they need? Who needs me?
Yeah.
Because if they need
Yeah.
you, you're going to be able to make it happen.
Yep.
Uh, I think all these tools you have to avail yourself of. Absolutely right. For me, the single most important thing is understanding the culture of the country because working in Spain versus working in Germany versus working in India are three very different cultures. So one of them may really be attractive to you. One of them really may turn you off. But really, that's the understanding for going international, at least for me and my clients, is truly understanding, is this the type of culture where I can thrive?
Yeah. Other questions before we run out of time?
There
I
are
know.
yeah, a couple more. So yeah, we have a few more minutes. Let's see. Okay, any advice? I feel like this can resonate with a lot of folks. Any advice on adapting to the mental challenge of an unchosen career change? So from a former federal employee,
Mm.
and I imagine with just other external influences and changes that this can land for a lot of folks.
Hmm.
Just one thing before we begin on that is I think we've mentioned earlier that it's not therapy. Coaching isn't therapy and that it's therapeutic. But in those types of situations where you've had this dramatic shift that's been forced upon you, here's a situation where combining coaching and therapy are really important, right? The therapy is going to help you deal with those traumas, really reflect on them, help you get over them. Coaching, in addition to helping you get over them, it helps you get over it because it helps you chart the path forward. And generating that momentum, in addition to getting the insight that you get from therapy, is a great way to move past those forced pivots.
Hmm.
I've coached. I have a very long history with the CDC, and so I have a love for the noble hearts and the amazing work that the CDC does, as well as other federal agencies I've worked in. It's been a tough year when you have put your heart and soul and life into a future. I also equate it that I've worked for there's a grief. Like I remember my very first company went out of business. I love that company and I cried when it went out of business because I love the people and it truly is grieving something you love and find meaning in. It's not just a job for us. And so anybody who says, "Hey, it's just a job, you'll get another one," no, it's about identity and meaning and love and
And
colleagues and
loss.
stuff and loss. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, and I remember years ago when, I was training as a coach, my coach would always say, if somebody's not ready, they're not ready. And so a lot of the work we did last year was, understanding the emotional readiness to get out. You got to go through your own grief and loss. It is a very personal. Now, whether or not that's a therapeutic component, like you said, it's super important that but the other thing is that, coming to terms that some of these maneuvers are not our fault. They're not within us, right? It's knowing that it doesn't make us less valuable. And so we have to do our inner work to recognize And as I said to many clients, you may come back. It's not all, this story still has multiple chapters ahead.
Hmm.
So I think it's going through the emotional piece and finding the support systems to do it. And knowing when you're ready to start making that journey forward, because as I said, getting out, talking with people about the future, building those support systems, seeing people make their way forward. You begin to see the hope and clarity, but you gotta find the support systems because you are thrown for a loop emotionally and you gotta honor it and work through it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to reiterate, like you have to really let yourself grieve because otherwise you won't move beyond it. And I mean, you see it in all, and we accept that with other parts of the life, but this is, especially if you've done something because it's like what you think is important in the world, to let that go. A good resource that I always loved and got a lot of this was Maya Shumker's work. She was a violinist, and she lost all feeling in her thumb. And truly, it was her whole life. And she had to pivot. And
Mm.
she became a cognitive psychologist because just wanted to study, like, and understand, like, how do you do this? How do you make this huge change? How do you build your adaptability and your resilience?
Oh, that's
Um,
wonderful.
yeah, yeah. So maybe that can be a resource for you. But honestly, and then build your, resources, right? Make sure that you have something that is good for you, right? Make sure you're taking care of yourself more than anything at this point. Like, go see Rachel. She does mindfulness, like so wonderful. Because that's, lean into your family. Join something that's really, really fun for you just to help build other meaningful things in your life.
The other thing I want to stress though, and this is something we always talk about, and my sister lost her husband and she was in a grief group for a period of time. And she said, before she entered it, she called me and she said, I want you to come and get me if I am still here in 6 months.
Huh.
And I thought that was so poignant. She said, some of the folks that are grieving have been in these groups 12, 15 years. And I said, she's like, there's no shame in terms of whatever you've gone through. We don't judge, but that's why I like the coaching continuum. We're all going to find our way forward in some way. And it's easy to find grief, particularly if you've gone through a big layoff or, you're in a very difficult situation. Misery loves company. Um, and it's easy to find grief allies. And so I always say, but the good news, I'm an eternal optimist. No matter what we've got, there's another play, right? It just may not look the way you thought it was. And if you are valuable, in this way at this organization that did not stop the world from needing you, it's just going to manifest differently. And do not give up on what you are bringing because the world still needs you. And so just make sure you have somebody that helps you with the grief, but also helping you see that the
Mhm.
possibilities are there for you to continue to. This is no matter what job you lost, no matter what's happened to you, there's another act, there's another play. When you're ready to tackle it, there's another way you're going to make your impact on the world. I always say
Yeah.
to clients, I'll hold this space for you. I'm like, when you're ready, we'll do the work, but you're not ready. And so when you're ready, we'll do the work. And I'm going to come and get you or check on you so we can make sure that you don't get lost over there because you got way too much to contribute in this world to
Yeah.
derail yourself for an indefinite amount of time.
Mhm. People used to ask me, like, what was it that made you leave the counseling side? And I said, because it was easy for people to stay stuck in the past. And when I
Mm-hmm.
took my first coaching course, what I loved about it is that it was helping people build a way forward.
Move
And
forward. Yeah.
I wanted to help my students or my clients honor what they were feeling, but then have the rest of their life.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
totally agree. I mean, for me, it was reflecting on the fact that wow, I had over 20 years of this pent-up experience in business, and I wanted to share that. I wanted to pay it forward because it had been so valuable for me. So it's
Mhm.
looking back. So before you can look forward, you really have to understand, well, what do you have that allows you to go wherever you want to go?
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't care where you are. You got something to contribute. You're meaningful and valuable. I don't care how. And the other thing I do encourage people when you're feeling that sense of grief or you're feeling really lost and hopeless, help someone. Get involved in your
Mhm.
community, do something, because nothing brings you out of it but more than recognizing you have something to contribute on a human to human level. So while you're working it
Amen.
through, you got something to contribute to somebody else. Make sure that in itself, that human to human interaction, can pull you forward. Go do work in the communities you've been trying to help, or do something to remind you that the world really needs you.
Hmm. Wise selfishness.
Mm.
Gosh, so what I'm hearing is let us not let us not run away, but run towards who we are evolving into, right? Change is the only certainty that comes with life and with our careers. And while, there's a lot of factors in the world in the way of work, um, but also all of you have mentioned that we as individuals continue to evolve and change. And what's required of us is to, if just for a moment or a few days, to really reflect and clear the noise, all of the distraction, to figure out, yeah, like what is meaningful? What do I have to contribute? Um, and of course, building community along the way, reminding ourselves that we're not alone in this. And so, anyways, I scribbled down in the midst of the conversation a number of nuggets that all three of you have shared, and I've seen some comments already just about yeah, some of the very like practical steps that we can all take as a way of moving forward. So, Heather, Jody, Steve, thank you all so much for sharing your wisdom and your insights with us all. I know we're just at time. Was there anything else before we officially close?
Yeah, just one quick announcement. As soon as we end the call, you'll get a pop-up on your screen that has a survey. It takes just a couple of minutes. We love your feedback. We rearrange our programs and we plan future programming based on that. So please take the time to do that. And we will be continuing this conversation at the next to me it feels like a continuation. Our next event is on July 22nd. It is with Scott Doyne and Brandon Smith, our GBS alumni coaches and faculty. And it is leading beyond the title. So how you can step up into leadership, not necessarily needing a title to be a leader. So to me, it's a natural extension of this conversation. Uh, I mimic what Rachel said. Great nuggets. I'm sure you guys saw me typing away like I was taking my notes, because I always love learning new things. But definitely join us next month, and then we have our Alumni Speed Coaching Day in August. All of that information is on our website. Thank you once again to all our coaches and Rachel. Great job moderating. Enjoy the rest of your day. You will get a recording of this in an email afterwards.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you
Thanks,
so
Ron.
much.
Thanks, Rachel. Good to be here.
Be well.
Take care.